The universe tore open with a howl no mortal throat could make. A jagged burst of warp light split the sky, bleeding colors that twisted the mind, and out of that violent rift, a lone figure crashed into a world already drowning in its own death. Goku hit the ground hard, carving a trench through mud soaked with corpses and burnt ceramite. The air tasted of iron and ash, the screams of the dying echoing like tortured spirits in his ears. Disoriented, breath shaking, he pushed himself up, only to be met by the hollow silence of a battlefield long past hope. Dark clouds choked the sky, flashing with unnatural lightning that made reality ripple. Goku could feel something watching him, something ancient and hungry crawling behind the fabric of existence. He staggered forward, clutching his chest, as whispers slithered through his mind, voices that were not his. Every instinct screamed danger, but he didn't know where he was or why he felt so alone. Then he saw them, twisted remains of humans, limbs bent wrong, faces frozen in terror. Their bodies marked with symbols that pulsed with sickening red glow. Whatever killed them wasn't human. Bolter fire cracked in the distance, followed by the panicked shouting of Imperial guardsmen who stumbled toward the trenches. Their eyes widened at the sight of Goku, an unknown being standing atop a mountain of dead. "Mutant!" one cried, voice breaking. "Xeno!" another screamed before raising his rifle. Goku stepped back, shocked not by the guns, but by the fear dripping from their voices. These soldiers were hollow, traumatized shells, clinging to life by inches. Their souls carried the same scent as the battlefield: despair, hopelessness, and the lingering shadow of something far worse. Before Goku could speak, earth-shaking footsteps rolled across the ruins. Towering giants clad in black power armor emerged through the smoke. Space Marines, their glowing visors cutting through the darkness like executioners' eyes. They studied Goku with cold calculation, their weapons humming with lethal intent. One of them muttered, "He radiates energy beyond any sanctioned classification." Another replied, "The Inquisition will want him alive." Goku felt the temperature drop as their presence pressed on him like a prison. He didn't know these warriors, but their aura carried no mercy, only duty carved from iron. Before he could react, a psychic pulse slammed into his mind, forcing him to his knees. A librarian stepped forward, blue runes burning along his armor, his voice echoing both in the air and inside Goku's skull. "You do not belong to this reality," the Marine growled, "and anything that defies reality must answer to the Imperium." Goku's vision blurred, blood dripping from his nose, as warp energy coiled around him like a serpent. He tried to stand, tried to speak, but the only thing he felt was cold dread. For the first time in his life, Goku realized he was not the strongest thing in this universe. Here, strength meant nothing. Here, even gods could die screaming. Goku's consciousness flickered like a failing lantern as the Marines closed in. Cold metal restraints, engraved with purity seals and warning sigils, snapped around his wrists. The moment they touched his skin, a burning sensation crawled beneath his flesh. Null metal, designed to cripple psychers and monsters alike. He felt his energy draining, weakening him to the level of a frightened mortal. The Marines lifted him effortlessly, as though he weighed nothing. Goku tried to speak, to ask where he was or why they feared him, but his words died beneath the crushing silence of their judgment. They dragged him across a landscape of ruin, toward a looming fortress carved into the mountain like the jaws of a titan. The sky churned with warp-touched storms, warping the air into distorted shapes that vanished as quickly as they formed. Inside the fortress, torches flickered with sickly green flames. Human prisoners hung from iron hooks, their bodies trembling as silent sobs escaped their cracked lips. Goku's heart clenched. He had felt despair before, but never like this, never so thick it clung to his skin like oil. Whatever ruled this world did so through fear alone. The Marines shoved him into a circular chamber where a tall figure awaited, draped in black robes, face hidden behind a skull-shaped mask etched with golden scripture. The air grew heavy with psychic weight. The Inquisitor. He approached Goku slowly, boots echoing like a gallows drum. "Your power defies classification," the masked figure said, voice soft but laced with venom. "You arrived through a tear in reality. That alone is grounds for extermination." He circled Goku like a predator evaluating prey. "But your energy, it feels like nothing I've encountered. You may be a weapon, or a threat, perhaps both." A group of psychers entered the chamber, their eyes dull and lifeless, each chained to the floor by their own sanity. One extended a trembling hand, trying to probe Goku's mind. The moment their consciousness touched his, they screamed, an agonized shriek that ripped through the chamber as blood poured from their eyes. They collapsed, twitching, as the Inquisitor watched with eerie calm. "Interesting," he whispered. "You resist the warp, yet you radiate power beyond it. You could be the Imperium's greatest weapon, or its extinction." His mask tilted. "I will decide which." The Inquisitor stepped closer until Goku could feel his cold breath against his skin. "Take him to the Apothecarion," he commanded. "Begin trials immediately. If he survives, he will be reborn." The Marines seized Goku and dragged him through iron corridors that reeked of blood and antiseptic. He felt powerless, trapped in a nightmare where every wall whispered suffering. As the doors slammed shut behind him, Goku realized something more terrifying than death awaited him. A fate he could not control, in a universe where kindness was weakness and survival required becoming a monster. Goku was thrown into a chamber colder than any mountain he had trained on. Frost clung to the walls, and the air carried the stink of chemicals and blood. Metal clamps locked around his ankles, humming with anti-psyker runes. Dozens of surgical tools hung above him like fangs of a metal beast. A hooded apothecary stepped forward, his armor stained with dried ichor. "Subject is alien," he muttered, "but biologically compatible. Barely." His voice was devoid of empathy. Goku tried to rise, but the null restraints crushed his energy like a dying flame. Fear crept into him, not fear of pain, but fear of becoming something he could no longer recognize. The first trial began without warning. An iron cage descended, its walls lined with shifting holographic illusions meant to disorient and break recruits. Goku staggered as visions flashed, worlds burning, children screaming, friends fading into dust. Each hallucination grew sharper, colder, more cruel. He saw Chi-Chi's hand reaching toward him, then snapping into bone shards. He saw Gohan drowning in a crimson ocean. The images weren't real, but the despair they carved into him was. The apothecaries watched from behind glass, noting every tremor in his body. "He adapts too quickly," one whispered. "Increase psychic load." The cage obeyed. The first trial began without warning. An iron cage descended, its walls lined with shifting holographic illusions meant to disorient and break recruits. Goku staggered as visions flashed, worlds burning, children screaming, friends fading into dust. Each hallucination grew sharper, colder, more cruel. He saw Chi-Chi's hand reaching toward him, then snapping into bone shards. He saw Gohan drowning in a crimson ocean. The images weren't real, but the despair they carved into him was. The apothecaries watched from behind glass, noting every tremor in his body. "He adapts too quickly," one whispered. "Increase psychic load." The cage obeyed. Goku was thrown into a chamber colder than any mountain he had trained on. Frost clung to the walls, and the air carried the stink of chemicals and blood. Metal clamps locked around his ankles, humming with anti-psyker runes. Dozens of surgical tools hung above him like fangs of a metal beast. A hooded apothecary stepped forward, his armor stained with dried ichor. "Subject is alien," he muttered, "but biologically compatible." Barely. His voice was devoid of empathy. Goku tried to rise, but the null restraints crushed his energy like a dying flame. Fear crept into him, not fear of pain, but fear of becoming something he could no longer recognize. When illusions failed, they unleashed beasts, fang things bred for killing recruits. A monstrosity with bone-plate skin lunged from the shadows. Goku dodged, but his weakened state slowed him. The creature's claws sliced across his chest, blood splattering the floor. Instinct roared awake. Even stripped of power, Goku fought back with raw skill. He slammed his elbow into the creature's jaw, shattering bone, then pinned it with a desperate cry. The apothecaries murmured again. "Strength far beyond baseline," another replied. "He survives what should break him." The trial did not end with victory. It ended when Goku collapsed, shaking, as the cage reset for the next abomination. Next came the pain gauntlets. Goku was strapped to a metal slab as needles the width of fingers pierced his skin, injecting chemicals that tore through his nerves like fireworms. His Saiyan body tried to heal, but the substances fought back, attacking cells, mutating tissues, forcing his biology to change. Blood hissed on the metal floor as he writhed. The apothecaries monitored the conflict within his DNA like scholars studying a storm. "His regeneration is rewriting the damage faster than we can inflict it," one grumbled. "Increase dosage." The machines obeyed. The pain became so intense, Goku couldn't breathe, only scream. Days blurred together. Without sleep, food, or light, Goku was thrust into the hypno-labyrinth. Thousands of whispering voices invaded his mind, reciting imperial doctrine, drowning his memories beneath oceans of propaganda. The labyrinth wanted obedience, loyalty, blindness. It tried to break his heart first, then his will. But inside that mental storm, Goku's core remained unshaken. He clung to memories of his sons, his friends, his Earth. Their faces became lifelines, dragging him back each time the indoctrination tried to swallow him. The psionic machine sputtered in confusion. "He resists programmed loyalty," a librarian hissed. "This is unnatural, dangerous." The physical trials were no kinder. Goku was forced into freezing chambers where temperatures dropped low enough to crystallize tears. His skin turned pale, cracked, then healed miserably each time he was dragged out. He was starved until his muscles trembled, then thrown into combat pits against cybernetic predators. Every victory only earned him a harsher fight. Each defeat brought more punishment. But through the torment, something inside him grew. Not hatred, not rage, but a fierce, desperate desire to protect. Every broken bone reminded him of the innocents he had seen suffering on this cruel world. If he could survive, he could help them. Then came the trial, meant to break even the strongest human recruit, the Chamber of Silence. A soundless void that swallowed every breath, every heartbeat. No voices, no warmth, no walls, just endless black emptiness. Goku floated, powerless, alone. Time dissolved. Minutes felt like years. Memories faded like smoke. He reached for his power, for anything familiar, but found nothing. The chamber wanted to erase him entirely. His own thoughts twisted into monsters whispering that he would die forgotten in this abyss. But then he remembered a single laugh. Goten's laugh. It cut through the void like sunlight. It was enough. Goku refused to disappear. When he emerged, covered in blood and frost, the apothecaries exchanged nervous glances. He had survived trials meant to kill ordinary humans, and even some space marine candidates. Yet instead of breaking, he grew stronger, more focused, more determined. "Begin the organ implantation," the chief apothecary said, voice tight with both awe and fear. As they wheeled Goku toward the operating chamber where the real horrors waited, the surgical transformation into an Astartes, he looked at the ceiling, breath ragged. Whatever came next would not just change him. It would remake him into a weapon, a monster, or something the Imperium had never seen before. Goku was dragged into the Apothecarion, an iron cathedral of agony. The walls were lined with racks of organs floating in nutrient fluid, each one pulsing like something alive and hungry. Metal tables shimmered with scalpels, bone saws, and drills, designed not for healing, but for controlled mutilation. A dozen hooded apothecaries surrounded him, their armor stained with the remnants of past failures. "Subject is prepared for augmentation," one said coldly. Goku felt his heart pound, not in fear of pain, but in fear of losing the last pieces of himself. What would he become after all this? The first organ was the secondary heart. Goku was pinned beneath mechanized restraints as saws sliced into his chest. He gasped as cold metal fingers pried his ribs apart. His vision blurred when the organ, still beating, was pushed into his body. A fiery shock spread through his torso as both hearts collided in rhythm, each beat stronger than the last. Apothecaries monitored his vitals, whispering nervously as his Saiyan cells fused with the new organ faster than expected. "His biology is consuming the implant," one muttered. "No, not consuming, enhancing it." Next came the os modula, a gland that would force his bones to mutate and strengthen. The device was injected directly into his spine. Goku screamed as molten heat flooded through every limb. His bones stretched, thickened, and groaned under the rapid transformation. His arms bent unnaturally before reshaping themselves. His skull cracked multiple times, only to seal again with stronger bone. Pain tore him apart from the inside, yet he refused to break. He clutched the table so hard, his fingerprints burned into the metal. "Impossible," an apothecary whispered. "He endures what should shatter the mind." They implanted the Laraman's organ next, responsible for instant clotting. Needles pierced deep into his chest, releasing swarms of microscopic machines carrying bio-programmed tissues. Goku convulsed as his blood thickened, then thinned, shifting into something no longer entirely Saiyan nor human. Each cut they inflicted sealed within seconds. The apothecary drew a blade across his arm. The wound vanished before the blood hit the floor. "This is beyond Astartes' efficiency," a surgeon murmured. Goku lay trembling, breath ragged, feeling his body becoming alien to him. The hemastamen and catalepsian node followed, altering his blood and removing the need for sleep. His veins felt like they were filled with boiling tar. The chamber spun wildly as they rewired the biology that tied him to rest, dreams, and human exhaustion. Hours passed like blurred shadows, each moment stretched into agony. Memories flickered. Goku training with Gohan, laughing with his friends. But the new organs numbed them, dulling the warmth of those memories. He gritted his teeth, refusing to let this cold universe erase what made him who he was. Then came the most dreaded implantation, the black carapace. They sliced open his torso and peeled apart his skin to implant dozens of neural interface plates directly into his flesh. These plates would allow him to bond with power armor, but the surgery was known to break recruits in mind and body. As the needles burrowed into his nerves, Goku felt thousands of electric shocks race through him, each one violent enough to drop a lesser being dead. His muscles spasmed uncontrollably, his vision fractured into flickering lights. For a moment, he couldn't remember his own name. The final test was the Psyche Resonance Trial, a psychic backlash designed to kill unstable minds. The librarian entered with runes floating around him. He placed a hand on Goku's forehead. Warp energy surged, cold, whispering, predatory. Goku saw visions, planets burning, children devoured by daemons, entire galaxies consumed by eternal darkness. The warp tried to drown his spirit, feeding on his fear. For a moment, he felt himself slipping. But then, he remembered Earth, the blue sky, his sons, his friends' laughter. His will snapped back like a roaring fire, burning through the nightmare. The psychic storm recoiled in shock. "He is resistant to the warp," the librarian whispered, trembling. "This should be impossible." When the final surgery ended, Goku lay on the metal table, covered in blood, sweat, and the marks of countless implants. The apothecary stepped back, staring not at a recruit, but at something new, something terrifying. His body had grown larger, denser, stronger than any human Astartes. His heartbeat thundered like distant artillery. His eyes glowed faintly with golden light, flickering with dormant power. "He survived," the chief apothecary said, voice shaking. "He isn't just an Astartes. He's something unclassifiable." As they unchained him, Goku rose slowly, feeling the weight of his new strength, the emptiness creeping into his soul, and the horrifying truth that he was no longer what he used to be. He had stepped into a nightmare, and the nightmare had reshaped him. The chamber shifted again, metal walls grinding like the teeth of some ancient beast as Goku stepped deeper into the trial basilica. The air was colder here, thick with the scent of burning incense and old blood. Rows of servo skulls floated around him, their hollow sockets glowing like dying embers, whispering fragments of liturgies Goku could not understand. Ahead waited a long corridor lined with statues of space marines, towering giants carved in obsidian, each frozen mid-charge. But their shadows moved. They shifted when Goku blinked. He felt the familiar comfort of his Saiyan strength, yet it clashed violently with the oppressive psychic weight pressing from all sides. The Imperium did not want him to fight monsters. It wanted to see if he could survive becoming one. A steel gate slammed shut behind him, sealing Goku inside the corridor. Then a voice echoed, deep, metallic, and almost amused. "Trial of fear, begin." The statues trembled. Cracks spread across their surfaces, and from within emerged figures carved from living void, their armor darker than shadow, their faces molten with hatred. Phantoms created by psychic projectors, illusions meant to invade the mind. But Goku felt them clawed deeper into memories, into scars he thought he'd forgotten. Images flashed, his friends dying, Earth burning under alien suns, Chi-Chi calling his name before being swallowed by darkness. His breathing sharpened. The illusions fed on emotion, fed on grief, and for the first time in years, a cold tremor went through him. He'd fought gods, but this was different. This was horror that understood him. Goku launched forward, fists blazing with ki, shattering the nearest phantom. It dissolved into a cloud of screaming faces that wrapped around him like smoke. Their whispers slid into his skull, accusations, failures, regrets twisted into cruel echoes. He swung wildly, but the corridor distorted, stretching like a nightmare made of metal and bone. The specters multiplied, every strike birthing more. They weren't meant to be defeated. They were meant to break him. His heartbeat thundered. His ki flickered. His vision blurred as a phantom seized his throat, lifting him effortlessly. Its face reshaped into Vegeta's, bloodied, cold, betrayed. "You let us die," it hissed. Goku's limbs froze. For a terrifying moment, he believed it. The Imperium was forcing him to confront a version of himself he feared more than any enemy. The warrior who couldn't save anyone. Then something inside him snapped, not out of rage, but out of defiance. His aura exploded, but instead of its familiar golden warmth, it crackled with raw, unstable energy, tinged with a violent crimson. The specters recoiled, shrieking as the corridor pulsed with light. Goku didn't recognize this power. It felt deeper, older, pulled from fear itself. But he controlled it, shaped it, forced it outward like a tidal wave. Phantoms shattered, walls shook, and the illusion collapsed all at once. The corridor returned to silence. Smoke drifted. Servo skulls recorded everything, whispering quick prayers in binary. Goku dropped to one knee, chest heaving. He'd passed the trial of fear, but not unchanged. Somewhere inside him, that crimson power still stirred, whispering that the Imperium had only begun digging into his soul. The next door opened. Light spilled out, but it wasn't warm or comforting. It was surgical, white, cold, merciless. Waiting inside were robed tech priests and towering space marines, their eyes unreadable behind their helms. "The trial of flesh," one intoned. "Step forward, initiate." Goku wiped sweat from his brow and forced himself to move. He wasn't just being tested anymore. He was being dismantled, piece by piece, reshaped into something the Imperium could use. And somewhere deep in the fortress, hidden behind layers of steel, another presence watched him. Something ancient, psychic, patient. Something that whispered, "This Saiyan will either become our greatest weapon or our greatest threat." Goku stepped into the chamber, and the door slammed behind him with a hiss like a beast swallowing prey. The room felt wrong. Too bright, too clean, too silent. Rows of metallic arms hung from the ceiling, tipped with needles, saws, and strange augers humming with a low, predatory vibration. Runes glowed across the walls, medical prayers etched into steel. The tech priests didn't speak to him like a person. Their mechanical eyes clicked, scanning him as if he were raw material on a forge line. One raised a hand, and the metal slab beneath Goku clamped around his wrists and ankles. "Initiate," the priest droned. "Prepare for biological correction." Goku struggled, but the restraints tightened until his bones ached. For the first time, he wondered if the Imperium intended not to change him, but to erase him. Machines descended, cold metal touching warm skin. Goku gritted his teeth as a needle pierced his arm. Thick, burning, almost alive. A hot wave spread through him, stinging deep into his muscles like molten metal replacing his blood. His vision flickered. He heard tech priests chanting Binharic hymns, each word sharp and mechanical, like gears grinding. Then another spike stabbed into his spinal column, sending a violent jolt through his entire body. He gasped. His ki reacted instinctively, trying to protect him, but the machines injected something that suppressed it, smothered it, chained it. "Saiyan physiology resisting integration," a tech priest snarled. "Increased dosage." More needles stabbed into him. More fire poured into his veins. Goku's scream echoed through the chamber, swallowed instantly by the sterile walls. Hours blurred into a haze of torment. The gene seeds, bioengineered organs that forged space marines, were forced into his body one by one. Each brought a new wave of agony. The os medulla began reshaping his skeleton. Goku felt his bones stretch, crack, rearrange themselves like living metal. His ribs expanded, spine thickened, and skull vibrated with internal pressure. Then came the bioscopia, flooding his muscles with unnatural growth. Every fiber twitched violently, swelling with raw power until he felt his skin strain as though it might tear. His Saiyan biology fought every change, turning each modification into a war. Sweat dripped down his face, mixing with blood where needles had broken the skin. Goku thought he'd known pain, Frieza, Cell, Moro, but this was different. This was pain designed by humans who believed suffering purified the soul. At one point, a transparent visor lowered over his eyes. A sharp flash followed, and Goku screamed as artificial microstructures stitched themselves into his retinas. His sight blurred into chaotic light, then sharpened beyond anything he'd experienced. He could see heat signatures, electromagnetic pulses, and the faint glow of Tech Priest's cybernetic veins. But the new vision came with side effects. Flashes of darkness crawling at the edges, shapes he wasn't sure were real. The machines worked faster now, slicing open his chest, inserting the Laraman's organ, stitching it with cold mechanical precision. His blood thickened, turning into a healing agent that spilled out like glowing amber. The tech priests watched without emotion. To them, He was not a warrior undergoing transformation. He was a project, a living experiment, and they wanted to see if a Saiyan could survive what even humans barely endured. Then came the nightmare implant, the black carapace. A slab of bioengineered tissue slid into view, pulsing like a living parasite. Goku's instincts screamed danger. It was placed onto his torso, and the sensation was sickening. The organ crawled across his chest, tiny black tendrils burrowing beneath his skin, merging with nerves, embedding itself into bone. Goku arched violently, every nerve firing at once as the carapace fused with his body. The tech priests leaned closer, recording every twitch. Integration unstable, one said coldly. Saiyan structure deviates from human template. The tendrils burrowed deeper, wrapping around his heart, threading through his spine. Goku roared, the sound raw and primal, echoing through the chamber until even the servo skulls faltered mid-flight. This was the moment the Imperium would break him, or the moment he would become something they could no longer control. When the restraints finally released, Goku collapsed onto the metal floor, drenched in sweat and shivering despite his enhanced physiology. The tech priests watched with blank satisfaction. "Modification complete," one declared. Subject survived. Goku pushed himself up on shaking arms, feeling his new organs pulsing like foreign hearts inside him. His senses were sharper, body heavier, strength greater, but something felt wrong beneath his skin, like whispers trapped inside the implants, urging him toward violence without reason. A towering space marine stepped forward, his armor casting a colossal shadow over the weakened Saiyan. "Rise, initiate," he commanded. "Your flesh has been reforged, but the mind must be broken next." As Goku stood, trembling but defiant, the chamber's lights dimmed. Doors opened to a labyrinth of darkness. The next trial awaited, not of body, but of sanity. Goku was dragged into a chamber unlike any other. The walls seemed to breathe, carved from obsidian that pulsed with cold light. The air itself felt alive, heavy with a psychic weight that pressed into his skull. Hooded librarians surrounded him, their eyes glowing through helms, hands outstretched. "The trial of mind begins," intoned one, voice vibrating directly inside his thoughts. His ki flared instinctively, but here it felt muted, drawn down, as though the chamber itself was siphoning his energy. A deep dread wrapped around him. Not physical, not visible, but suffocating. He had fought countless enemies, gods even, yet here he felt helpless, like a child before a predator that knew every fear inside him. Visions struck immediately. The room dissolved into endless darkness. Goku saw Earth ablaze, cities collapsing beneath alien sky. He saw Gohan and Goten screaming as invisible claws shredded them limb from limb. He tried to reach them, but the distance stretched infinitely, mocking his inability to help. The librarian's chants amplified the psychic assault, warping reality, twisting every memory into terror. Each image of death, of helplessness, dug into him. Every failure he had ever feared came alive, multiplied by the warp's cruel logic. He clutched his head, roaring, but the pain wasn't just physical. It was in his soul, clawing at the very essence of who he was. Then the whispers came, low, sibilant, indistinguishable from thought yet distinct, voices that slithered into his mind. "You cannot save them. You will fail. Your power is meaningless. Goku's ki flared, trying to push them back, but the chamber responded with psychic backlash, walls bending, air thickening, visions intensifying. Shadows formed shapes, moving like sentient darkness, shaping his fears into grotesque puppets. Goku himself, broken and mangled, laughing as innocence screamed. His mind screamed, twisting into desperation. The librarians observed in clinical fascination, making notes, adjusting psionic intensity. For the first time, Goku felt truly alone, staring into a mirror of infinite despair that the universe itself had painted for him. A greater horror arrived, a daemon shape, impossible to describe fully, its form flickering between serpentine and humanoid, eyes infinite and empty. It whispered promises of power, of freedom from pain, if only he surrendered. Its presence chilled Goku's bones, his heart racing as though it were a predator hunting prey it already knew. He tried to resist, but his own Saiyan instincts warned him this was beyond mere training. This was a test of soul, a confrontation with everything he feared he might become. He felt rage and despair battle within him. His ki trembled like a storm cloud, threatening to erupt, yet the warp dampened it, taunting him. The daemon shape's voice became a chorus, repeating every self-doubt he'd ever known. Goku's memories of home flared. Blue skies, the sound of laughter, the warmth of Chi-Chi's hands, Gohan's mischievous grin, Goten's innocent curiosity. These images became his anchor. He focused, letting his ki flow from his core, not outward as energy, but inward as resolve. The chamber resisted, cracking walls, bending space, distorting time, but he clung to the memory of hope. His mind became a fortress within the storm of terror. Shadows screamed. Visions of despair twisted into nothingness. Yet Goku refused to break. He screamed, a raw, unyielding cry that pushed back the warp's psychic pressure. For a moment, silence fell, heavy and trembling, as though the chamber itself held its breath. The librarians were shocked. None had ever seen a mind withstand such relentless psychic warfare while simultaneously feeding on its own inner power. Goku's body trembled, glowing faintly, his ki reacting to mental strain. The warp shrieked, recoiling from something it could not consume. The daemon shape writhed, its form destabilizing as Goku's clarity grew. He wasn't just resisting. He was adapting, reshaping the psychic storm around him, bending the assault without losing his essence. For the first time, the librarians whispered among themselves, this was no ordinary recruit. This was a being beyond the human template, something alien, something unstoppable. Even after hours, or what felt like weeks, of torment, the chamber remained intact, but Goku emerged, altered. His eyes burned with golden light, faint cracks of energy tracing his skin. His heartbeat echoed like distant artillery. The warp, which had sought to consume him, now recoiled, leaving a hollow emptiness where dread had dominated. Yet a new awareness gnawed at him. The Imperium would not leave him be. They had tested not just his body, but his soul, and the truth weighed heavier than any pain. He had survived horrors beyond mortal understanding, but the chamber whispered one final warning. The universe does not forgive weakness. Your strength will be demanded and feared. The chamber doors opened. Outside, towering space marines waited, silent and imposing. their ceramite gleaming under the flickering lights. Goku stepped forward, body stronger, senses sharper, mind unbroken, yet forever scarred. He had endured trials the Imperium thought impossible, survived psychic storms that had killed countless Astartes before him. Yet a gnawing unease remained. His new powers, his unmatched resilience, and his defiance of warp influence marked him as dangerous. Someone, or something, watched him from the shadows, patient, calculating. The librarians whispered among themselves, their words sharp with awe and fear. He is no longer a recruit. He is a weapon, a being the galaxy was never meant to see. And as Goku's ki flared softly, he realized the nightmare had only just begun. The battlefield was a hellscape of fire and ash. Hive City ruins stretched into the smoke-choked horizon, broken spires stabbing at a blood-red sky. Bolter fire echoed like thunder, punctuated by screams of the dying. Goku landed softly amid the carnage, his new Astartes-enhanced body adjusting seamlessly to the wreckage around him. Guardsmen froze at the sight of him, a being both alien and terrifying, glowing faintly with the latent energy of his Saiyan ki. His eyes scanned the chaos. Warp-tainted shadows danced across the battlefield, flickering like corrupted spirits. Somewhere deep within the smoke, he could sense it, a presence so immense, so wrong, that instinct screamed this was not a foe any mortal could face. From the haze, figures emerged, Chaos Marines, their armor blackened and twisted, spikes jutting from ceramite plates, eyes glowing with malevolent light. Demonic glyphs burned along their weapons, pulsing as if alive. They advanced, the air around them thick with warp energy, suffocating and acidic. Their leader, a towering chaos champion, smiled beneath a twisted helm, revealing teeth sharper than any xeno-predator. "You are not of this world," it growled, voice echoing inside Goku's mind. "Yet your energy, it tempts me." He lunged, and the battle began. Each strike sent shockwaves that shattered walls. Each ki blast burned like sunlight on rusted metal. The Imperium soldiers fled, whispering prayers to gods who would not answer. Goku moved like a storm, fists faster than bolter rounds, ki blasts searing through the corrupted ranks. Yet the enemy adapted. Warp shields flared, psychic backlash erupted, demonic laughter echoing with every kill. Still, Goku pressed forward, his Saiyan instincts blending with the brutality of the Space Marine gene seed. Every strike left his body battered, yet his muscles repaired faster than flesh and bone should allow. Blood mixed with sweat, fire with smoke, and the ground trembled under his footsteps. Even Chaos Marines, bred to slaughter humanity, hesitated at his speed, at the blinding energy radiating from a warrior who should have been human, but was something far more terrifying. Then it appeared, a greater daemon, its body a twisted mockery of flesh and shadow, horns coiled like barbed lightning, eyes like molten void. Its presence warped reality, making Goku stagger. The warp whispered in his mind, lashing with promises of surrender, power, domination. It was immense, infinite, more nightmare than creature. Yet Goku stood, fists clenched, chest heaving. His ki flared, golden light clashing with the darkness. Every muscle screamed, every nerve burned. And then he transformed. Super Saiyan Astartes. His aura erupted in brilliant, burning energy, colliding with the warp taint in a storm that made the ground tremble and the sky bleed. The daemon shrieked, a sound that twisted thoughts and corrupted hope, yet Goku surged forward. Each strike was calculated, precise, fueled by raw instinct and newfound Astartes strength. Fists collided with demonic flesh. Ki blasts tore through armor warped by the warp itself. Around them, the battlefield convulsed. Rubble rained like daggers. Fire spiraled into the sky, and bolter rounds ricocheted uselessly. Goku felt a thrill he had never known. Fear mingled with adrenaline. Sorrow for those who would never see another sunrise, and an overwhelming need to survive, to protect, to fight. The daemon countered with psychic pulses, trying to bend his mind, but Goku's resolve was a fortress no warp power could breach. Time dilated as the battle continued. To ordinary eyes, the fight might have lasted seconds, but for Goku, hours stretched like eternity. The greater daemon's blows could have shattered mountains. His claws could have torn through titans, yet Goku adapted. He ducked, parried, and struck with fury drawn from every trial he had endured. The Space Marine surgeries, the psychic torment, the horrors of the Imperium. His ki ignited again, forming arcs of blinding energy that incinerated lesser daemons and reduced Chaos Marines to ash. Around him, allies stared in awe, fear, and disbelief. No recruit, no mortal, no gene-enhanced human had ever survived such a confrontation, let alone dominated it. The demon faltered. It recoiled, confusion flickering in its eyes, something it had never experienced. The warp around it stuttered, bending, fracturing under the pressure of Goku's will. He saw the opening, seized it. A final, brutal punch, infused with every ounce of Saiyan power and Astartes enhancement, struck its chest. Flesh and armor tore apart. A scream that was both sound and psychic vibration shattered the battlefield. The greater demon imploded, swallowed by the very warp energy it had wielded. Silence followed, a terrible, oppressive silence. Goku stood, chest heaving, glowing with residual energy, surveying the devastation. Around him, survivors whispered, praying for mercy that would never come. Even as the smoke cleared, Goku felt no victory. He was alive, yes, but the battlefield was littered with corpses, allies and enemies alike, screaming souls lingering in the warp. The warp had noticed him now. Its attention was drawn, hungry, calculating. He had survived horrors the Imperium could barely comprehend, defeated beings that should have destroyed him. Yet he felt the weight of every life lost, every scream unanswered. Somewhere, behind the endless void of the warp, something waited, patient, immense, and inevitable. The Imperium would call him a hero. Chaos would call him a threat. And Goku understood, deep in his heart, that the nightmare of war had only begun, and he would never be the same again. After the battlefield fell silent, Goku returned to the fortress of the Space Marines, his body still radiating residual energy from the clash with the greater daemon. Yet no cheers awaited him, only whispers. The Inquisition had been alerted. Inside the stone halls, the air was thick with incense and tension. Hooded figures waited, eyes glowing through their masks. "The subject has survived deployment," one whispered, voice icy, "and survived horrors that should have shattered him." Another muttered, His power exceeds even the highest sanctioned levels. He is dangerous. Goku could feel their judgment, an invisible weight pressing against his chest. This was no praise. This was a verdict. He was summoned to the high chamber, a room carved from black stone, illuminated by green flame and the flicker of servo skulls hovering like vultures. The Inquisitor stepped forward, tall, masked, radiating authority that could freeze blood. "Goku," the voice rasped, echoing directly in his mind. "You have survived where others failed. You have killed demons and corrupted men alike. Yet that power is uncontained, uncontrolled, a threat to the Imperium itself." Goku's ki flared instinctively, but the Inquisitor continued, "You will submit to tests of loyalty or be destroyed." The words were simple, but the threat was absolute. Even a space marine might have faltered. Goku clenched his fists, knowing that compliance was no longer an option for him. The Inquisition's trials were psychological as much as physical. Goku was placed inside a room of mirrors, each reflecting a twisted version of himself. His Super Saiyan form, Astartes' enhancements exaggerated, corrupted, even fused with the demonic entities he had defeated. The mirrors whispered, warping his thoughts. "You serve nothing but death. You are not human. You are not loyal. You are expendable." The warp itself stirred, its psychic tendrils trying to worm into his mind through the reflections. His ki flared again, golden energy colliding with invisible pressure, pushing back waves of mental assault. For the first time, Goku understood the Imperium's fear, not of his strength, but of his mind, unbroken and untethered to their doctrine. The Inquisitor approached, carrying a device that hummed with psychic resonance. "This will determine your obedience," he said, a cruel promise. It connected to Goku's neural implants, sending surges into his brain designed to enforce loyalty. Images of the Emperor, of the Imperium, of unquestioned obedience assaulted him. Each pulse threatened to override his thoughts, overwrite his memories. Goku's body convulsed, ki sparking wildly, energy clashing with the psychic assault. He remembered the screams, the death, the warp horrors he had endured. He would not kneel. He would not submit. His Saiyan pride and Astartes' instincts combined in defiance, forming an aura of unyielding will that radiated outward, shaking the chamber itself. The Inquisitor recoiled slightly, eyes narrowing behind the mask. "Impossible! No recruit has ever resisted this level of control," he hissed. "Even gene-enhanced minds falter." Goku felt the psychic chains crack under his defiance, his energy flaring brighter, golden light colliding with the shadows of indoctrination. He stepped forward, voice firm despite the pressure. "I will not be your weapon. I will not be your slave. I fight for life, for hope, for those who cannot." The chamber trembled. Servo skulls shivered in their flight patterns. Even the librarians whispered among themselves, awe and fear mingling in their voices. This Saiyan had survived the warp, survived daemons, and now survived the judgment of men who prided themselves on absolute control. The Inquisitor withdrew a relic, a crystalline rod etched with forbidden glyphs, its tip humming with psychic suppression. "Then you leave me no choice," he said. Lightning surged from the rod, striking Goku squarely. Energy met energy. The chamber shook violently, stone cracking, servo skulls dropping to the floor with sparks. Goku gritted his teeth, ki blazing. every nerve and organ screaming in harmony with the assault. The relic's cower tried to immobilize him, bend his mind, enslave his will, but the Saiyan spirit within him, fused with the Astartes' resilience, refused to yield. Golden energy collided with psychic force in an explosion of light and sound that left echoes bouncing through the fortress halls. The Inquisitor's calm facade cracked, mask tilting as he realized the magnitude of the being before him. Goku had endured horrors that would have killed entire squads of Astartes. He had resisted psychic domination that had broken hardened veterans. He was untethered, unpredictable, a weapon no doctrine could contain. "You defy the Imperium," the Inquisitor whispered, almost afraid. "You are not a recruit. You are an anomaly." Goku's energy flared once more, illuminating every shadow in the chamber, his silhouette a terrifying blend of Saiyan and Space Marine. The Inquisitor realized too late that the monster they had created was not theirs to command, and might never be. Goku stepped from the chamber, still glowing faintly, muscles trembling from the psychic backlash, yet unbroken. The Inquisition watched silently, a mixture of awe, fear, and calculation behind their masks. He had survived trials designed to crush body, mind, and soul. He had defeated daemons and chaos warriors alike, resisted indoctrination, and now defied the very authority that sought to control him. Somewhere, deep in the Imperium, whispers would spread. The Saiyan Astartes, who could not be commanded, and Goku knew this truth with grim clarity. Survival was no longer enough. Every step he took marked him as a threat, a legend, a weapon the galaxy had never anticipated. And the nightmare of war, of chaos, of the Imperium's sphere was far from over. Goku moved through the war-torn landscape, stepping over scorched bodies and twisted wreckage of Imperial tanks. He was no longer a recruit, no longer under direct command of the Imperium. His enhanced Astartes body carried the scars of countless trials, and his ki burned faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat across the desolate battlefield. Behind him followed a small cadre of loyal guardsmen and battle-broken Marines, unsure whether to fear or revere him. The sky bled red, warp storms twisting above, painting the world in unnatural hues. Somewhere, the distant screams of Chaos Legions echoed, a call to carnage that Goku felt in his bones. This would not be a mission, it would be a war. Ahead, the ruined city of Veros Prime sprawled, a labyrinth of ash and skeletal skyscrapers. Chaos banners hung from spires like grotesque mockery. Demonic creatures roamed freely, tearing apart soldiers, civilians, and machines alike. The air shimmered with warp energy, thick and suffocating. Every instinct told Goku that the enemy was aware of him. He could feel the psychic signatures of countless sorcerers, each radiating power and malevolence. "Stay close," he instructed his followers, voice low but commanding. "We fight only when necessary. Precision, not rage." But beneath that calm, his heart raced. Every step into the city brought the threat of ambush, psychic assault, and overwhelming force. Forces even his enhanced body would struggle against. The first wave struck like a storm. Hundreds of chaos cultists poured from ruined gates, armed with jagged blades and crude firearms. Bodies mutated by warp corruption. Their shrieks pierced the smoke-thick air, an unnatural sound that set nerves on fire. Goku's ki flared, golden light streaking across the battlefield. He moved faster than any eye could follow, fists striking, legs sweeping, energy blasts erupting from his palms. Every enemy he touched was obliterated or thrown clear, bodies shattering under his enhanced strength. Marines and guardsmen behind him watched in awe as he cut a path through the horde, a living hurricane of fury and controlled precision. Chaos shrieked in response, as if the warp itself recoiled from his presence. Then came the demonic artillery. Warp-spawned constructs launched firestorms, psychic missiles, and corrosive energy at the advancing force. Goku's reflexes reacted instinctively, shielding his squad with blasts of ki, deflecting missiles and smashing the constructs apart before they could reach his comrades. The battle became surreal. Time slowed, each explosion echoing like a heartbeat. The wart screamed, twisting the sky, bending reality. Yet Goku adapted, moving through the chaos as if he belonged to neither time nor space. He could feel the demon's psychic eyes on him, their hunger for his essence. He clenched his fists. They would not take him today, not while he still breathed, not while he still fought. Chaos sorcerers emerged next, their forms shifting and unstable, casting spells that warped the environment, animating rubble, summoning tentacles of darkness from the ground. Goku leaped, striking multiple sorcerers simultaneously, energy blasts ripping through their ethereal forms. Yet for every one he destroyed, 2 more rose from the warp. The city became a labyrinth of shadows and screaming fire, streets collapsing, buildings crumbling, and yet Goku pressed forward. Each step was measured, each strike precise, his body both weapon and shield. His squad followed, inspired and terrified, moving through the horror with a faith born not of doctrine, but of survival under the presence of someone truly inhuman. Hours, or perhaps days, passed in this nightmare, each encounter escalating in intensity. Greater daemons emerged, hulking figures of molten flesh, claws ripping through stone and steel. Goku met them head-on, fists meeting claws, ki colliding with warp energy. Sparks flew, walls shattered, and the ground beneath him cracked with every blow. His enhanced body endured attacks that would have vaporized ordinary Marines. Each victory left him exhausted, yet unbroken. He was no longer fighting for orders, for obedience, or for the Imperium. He fought for life itself, for the few innocents still trapped in the nightmare, for the small hope that even in a galaxy consumed by chaos, some light could survive. By the time the central citadel came into view, the scale of destruction was almost incomprehensible. Entire streets were ash, fires consumed the ruins, warp-touched storms churned above. The final enemy awaited, a daemon prince of enormous size, its body a swirling vortex of shadow and fire, eyes glowing with malice and intelligence. Its presence distorted reality around it, threatening to collapse the battlefield into madness. Goku stepped forward, ki blazing, his enhanced Astartes frame standing resolute against a being that had annihilated countless worlds, every muscle and nerve coiled for the inevitable clash. The prince's roar shattered the air, but Goku met it with a battle cry of his own, charging headlong into impossible odds. The clash was cataclysmic. Fists met claws with explosions of energy, shockwaves shattering buildings and sending debris flying like meteors. The Daemon Prince lashed with psychic power, warping the environment, summoning more horrors. Yet Goku's body, mind, and ki adapted, countering with overwhelming force. Each strike was a combination of Saiyan instinct, Astartes' precision, and unyielding will. Around him, chaos raged, but Goku became a living hurricane, an unstoppable storm of destruction. When the final blow landed, the prince disintegrated into warp flames, leaving silence and ruin behind. Goku stood alone, golden aura flickering, body battered but undefeated. His squad stared in awe, understanding that what had survived this battle was no longer a warrior. They had witnessed a legend, reborn in blood, fire, and fury. And yet, deep in the warp, eyes of unfathomable malice turned toward him, patient, calculating, and far from defeated. Word of Goku's exploits spread through the Imperium like wildfire. Whispers of a golden key Astartes who had single-handedly crushed Chaos legions, defeated greater demons, and resisted the Inquisition's control reached the highest halls of Terra. Councils convened in panic. Inquisitors argued over the threat he posed. Some saw a weapon. Others saw a danger too immense to tolerate. "He is no longer under Imperial command," one muttered. "He operates by his own will. He cannot be trusted." Decrees were issued. The rogue Saiyan Astartes was now an enemy of the Imperium, hunted by their deadliest agents, psychers, and even entire chapters if necessary. The galaxy trembled as orders spread. Capture, control, or destroy. Goku received word through intercepted channels, but did not falter. He knew the Imperium would come, armed with fire, faith, and fanaticism. He moved from world to world, his squad dwindling but loyal, leaving only shadows and whispers in their wake. Hive worlds and forge planets went silent when his presence was near. Entire garrisons abandoned posts rather than confront him directly. Warp-tainted storms followed him like a shroud, as if the universe itself feared what he had become. Yet Goku did not seek chaos for its own sake. His goal was survival, and to protect the innocent caught between the Imperium's dogma and the warp's hunger. Every step was tactical, calculated, but his golden aura burned brighter with each threat. Hunting parties arrived. Squads of Astartes, inquisitorial retinues, psychers of immense power, even assassins trained in the arts of war and subtlety. Yet every encounter demonstrated the horrifying truth: Goku could not be subdued. Fists, ki blasts, enhanced reflexes, and psychic resistance allowed him to escape unscathed. Entire battalions vanished against the storm of his power. The Imperium recorded casualties and disappearance rates in grim silence. Unable to comprehend how a single rogue Astartes could survive repeated, coordinated strikes, reports became legend, whispered in fear across sectors. He was unstoppable, yet precise, leaving devastation only where necessary, never indiscriminate. To them, he was both a marvel and a nightmare. Goku received word through intercepted channels, but did not falter. He knew the Imperium would come, armed with fire, faith, and fanaticism. He moved from world to world, his squad dwindling but loyal, leaving only shadows and whispers in their wake. Hive worlds and forge planets went silent when his presence was near. Entire garrisons abandoned posts rather than confront him directly. Warp-tainted storms followed him like a shroud, as if the universe itself feared what he had become. Yet Goku did not seek chaos for its own sake. His goal was survival, and to protect the innocent caught between the Imperium's dogma and the warp's hunger. Every step was tactical, calculated, but his golden aura burned brighter with each threat. The galaxy began to fracture under the tension. Worlds once loyal to the Emperor questioned the efficacy of their overlords. Some secretly aided the rogue Saiyan, hoping that his strength could protect them from chaos and the Imperium alike. Warp-tainted agents watched from the shadows, curious, sensing the anomaly that Goku represented, a being unbound by doctrine, unstoppable, and impossibly resilient. Everywhere he went, fear followed, not only of his fists, but of what he represented: freedom from chains, defiance against gods and men alike. The Imperium's decree of hunt and destroy now became a galaxy-wide manhunt, a relentless pursuit that would not stop until he was dead or captured. Yet Goku moved forward, unbroken. His squad, though reduced, remained loyal, inspired by a warrior who defied impossible odds and emerged stronger each time. Across shattered planets, smoldering battlefields, and warp-tainted sectors, his legend grew, whispered in awe and fear. The Imperium's finest hunted him relentlessly, but nothing had succeeded. Every attack, every trap, every psychic assault had been met with unyielding strength and cunning. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a force of nature, a living storm against dogma and corruption. And somewhere, deep in the shadows of the galaxy, eyes of unimaginable malice watched, calculating, patient, waiting for the moment when the rogue Saiyan Astartes would finally be truly tested, and perhaps, for the first time, vulnerable.